Hi, I'm Mark Perry, Executive Director of Florida Oceanographic Society, and with me today is Dr. Loraé Simpson, who's our Chief Scientist and Director of Research and Conservation at Florida Oceanographic. We're here today in the St. Lucie Estuary, River Estuary, which connects out to the Indian River Lagoon and the St. Lucie Inlet. We're here in the wide portion of the estuary, and its natural tributaries are to the north about 20 miles, the North Fork, and the South Fork about 10.5 miles, which come together right here in Stuart and make this broad section of the estuary. It's really important to understand that this was a natural estuary system until the 1900s, when we wanted to drain Florida and get rid of all the drainage in the Everglades and try to also control Lake Okeechobee. And during that time, they built a canal that connected Lake Okeechobee to the St. Lucie Estuary, and one on the west coast to connect the Caloosahatchee Estuary. And unfortunately, these canals are now used to discharge and release water out of the lake as it gets too high, and they cause so much damage of not only all the fresh water for too long a period, but also the nutrients and the pollution that comes with that. So we're really trying to understand, let's get to move that water south to the Everglades and Florida Bay, which needs it, and then to allow these estuaries, these northern estuaries, both St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee, to kind of be a more natural system. And part of that natural system is our oyster reefs and seagrass beds and other habitat that are really vital to it. And here at Florida Oceanographic, we're trying to repair and restore some of these oyster reefs that are right here with us today. So I have Dr. Simpson, what do you?
Yeah, so just going off of Mark, when we talk about the water and this amount of salinity here, he mentioned that we have the inlet down a little bit farther, which is at 35 parts per thousand, and then right up here you have the north and south fork of the St. Lucie Estuary, which is going to be around 0. Well, oysters and seagrass, they both have a very fine threshold for how much freshwater they can sustain for a certain amount of time. And if you go over that threshold, they die. And what we're seeing with Lake Okeechobee is when they dump all the water out of the St. Lucie, you have freshwater periods that go way beyond what oysters are allowed or what their threshold is. So usually this should be around 24, 29, just the way that the convergence of fresh and salt water takes place. But right now, we have a salinity of 7 parts per thousand. And so I think it was after 28 days.
Yeah.
If you have fresh water that lasts that long, you will have the actual adult oysters. They are completely killed. Baby oysters, however, they don't even need that long. I think it's between 7 and 14 days. If they have low salinities, they will completely die. And then you've lost a whole season of oyster recruitment in the area, which makes it really difficult to restore an area when you can't even have an oyster survive one season. And so these oyster habitats, these reefs that we try to restore, not only are important for the fact that these guys are cleaning water, but they are also habitat to a myriad of species, whether it's small benthic species, larger fish that come in and feed off of those smaller species. They help to save and stabilize shorelines, so erosion. If you look right behind me, there's a reef that was put in, and that grass came in and recruited after the fact because that reef built up the land and then grass was able to come in and colonize. And so that in turn is going to start to save this bank from erosion.
They also filter water. Right?
They filter about 50 gallons of water a day. Each individual oyster, which everyone wants clear water, that's not only good for our recreation, but it's also really important for our seagrasses. Seagrasses, they live in these shallow water environments, and if it's too turbid, if it can't get light from the sun, it dies because they photosynthesize. They're plants. And so you need these oysters to clean the water for the seagrass. And then that seagrass also in turn is habitat for fish and little crustaceans that these fish come and feed on. So the connectivity in this area is very important to restore and to be knowledgeable about, because without these oyster reefs, without the seagrass, you're going to lose your fisheries. And with that comes maybe the loss of your recreation. potentially the loss of commercial fishing, and the loss of wanting to go out and enjoy a nice kayak ride through the mangroves or through the oyster reefs.
So that's why we're trying to help restore the Everglades ecosystem all the way down through to Florida Bay and allow that water to go south. Restoring that water flow south will also help to restore these coastal and northern estuaries. So thanks for joining us today, and happy Everglades.
Thank you.